welcome. Thanks for joining us on the show. I'm Mike, and you cannot follow me on Twitter because I'm not there, but you can follow this guy at the handle that's at the bottom third of your screen. Welcome to Film Files.
We have a lot to cover today, all of it exciting and none of it very important that will help you get better grades or anything like that.
It will not increase your paycheck.
So we told you that we were going to be covering Lego Batman, but in lieu of Lego Batman, we are going to be talking about Batman in general instead.
It's because our budget was not enough to cover the tickets at the theater.
No, sad. So if you want to provide our tickets in the future, please let us know.
Click the donate button.
All right, so let's get to it. Our first segment, Rank 'em.
Rank 'em, rank 'em, rank 'em.
So today we're going to be ranking Batman films from best to worst, or rather, worst to best.
Now let's talk about this because there's a lot of Batman movies to talk about, a lot of animated series that are really good. I myself grew up on Batman Forever, or Batman something, whatever it was. We're only talking about the live action films here, people. Coming in at number 10, we have Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad.
But guys, wait, guys. Suicide Squad's not a Batman movie. Yeah, I know he makes a cameo in it and we needed 10. Moving on.
Number 9.
Number 9, we have the 1966 Batman.
With Adam West.
With Adam West. Which was pretty good, but it's still number 9. And in number 8.
Number 8.
We have the great, the grand, the controversial Batman vs. Superman. But Mike, wait. No.
We're not going to talk about it.
In number 7, we have Tim Burton's 1989 version of Batman. With the Joker and stuff. Going down the list. And we're trying not to make our comments about these movies too early. But in number 6, we've got Batman and Robin. Number 5, Batman Returns. And number 4, Batman Forever. Starring Jim Carrey as Batman.
Sorry. Somebody stop me. I just couldn't resist. Okay.
Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid? Okay, moving on. Who's afraid of this podcast? Where are we? Number 4 was Batman Forever starring Jim Carrey. Number 3. The Dark Knight Rises. But that's the third in the Batman series, and it was really good. Yeah.
That one had
sure.
Mr. Bane, Mr. Batman,
I can't hear you. This is, I mean,
you can't understand me.
Was this the inspiration for Kylo Ren or what? I mean, just awful.
That's a good point, actually. Probably was.
The fire rises. Okay, in number 2, we've got Batman Begins. Yes, Batman Begins is only in number 2 because of the great, the only, the Heath the Legend Ledger, The Dark Knight. Yes, that's right. Heath the Legend starring as Batman in The Dark Knight made the number 1 spot on our list.
Or as Paul Bettany put it in First Night, the one, the only Heath Ledger. Anyways.
But wait up, guys. Wait. We gotta talk about this. Why isn't Batman vs. Superman in the first spot? Let me lay down some information for you about your beloved Batman vs. Superman movie.
Batman v Superman, as I like to call it.
Let me tell you something.
Okay.
It sucked. And you're all stupid for liking it.
Please note that the personal opinions of the host doesn't matter, and we don't care. Thanks.
Now that I've got that out of my system, okay. Let me just put it this way for you: it's Batman vs. Superman. Yeah, it's gonna bridge us into the what is it? Not the Avengers. What are they called? The other people.
Justice League.
The Justice League.
Yep.
Starring Aquaman.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna bridge us into the Justice League. Let me give you a couple of movies that are above Batman vs. Superman with IMDb ratings. You got Donnie Darko, Arrival that nobody saw. Gone Girl, that was about a girl that disappeared because we didn't get enough of that. With who's that? Shoot. I'm not prepared for this.
Yeah, that's okay.
Kill Bill and Batman Begins. Come on now. The amount of time between that origin story of Batman and this origin story of Batman, you should have come up with something a little bit better.
Even Monty Python is higher ranked than Batman v Superman.
That is true. Let me give you a couple other movies. Okay, so we've got 2001: A Space Odyssey, Singing in the Rain. Well, that doesn't really count because Singing in the Rain is the best movie of all time. You've got Inglourious Bastards, The Kid, Bicycle Thieves, and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. As soon as you come up with a movie that's better than Monty Python and the Holy Grail, then you can come back to the big kids table. I should put in a little asterisk here that also means Jurassic Park needs to
Unfortunately.
rework itself and then come back to the big kids table.
Yeah. But that's for another time.
But it is thanks to Heath Ledger's take on Batman, who took on Batman, that The Dark Knight found its way into our number one rank 'em worst to best Batman films. Okay, so we've been talking about ranking the Batman films, but let's take a look at the specific actors and their take on Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Who, in your opinion, is the best and the worst Batman? Go.
So a best would probably have to be Christian Bale, and the worst would probably have to be, let me think about this. I'm going to freeze you, George Clooney.
George Clooney.
Who's Danny Ocean?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, okay, if we were to really look at a lot of George Clooney's movies, he's kind of hit and miss. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I watched Michael Keaton 3 times, could not figure out for the life of me what was going on. Well, maybe you're just not very intellectual. Shut up.
Today, Mike's chosen to be rude, Mike, just for anybody who's wondering. He doesn't care about your opinions.
I'm deep and moody like Batman.
It provides entertainment value, so.
Hands down, Christian Bale has got to be the best Batman.
Oh, yeah, for sure, hands down.
I mean, we're just going to put The Dark Knight Rises kind of out of the picture for a minute, but
yes.
I actually really enjoyed watching his take on Batman through the first 2 films.
Yes, for sure.
Michael Keaton's great and everything. Everybody talks about his chin. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
So we talked actors. Let's go directors. Of all the Batman movies out there, minus Lego Batman, who was the best director? Okay, so maybe tell us a little bit about kind of Christopher Nolan's take on the Batman origin story, because there's only an origin story to Batman.
Well, I will do you one better and go back in time to Tim Burton, actually, because Christopher Nolan is expanding upon an idea that Tim Burton might have actually gone with. So we enter this interesting idea of, do we tell Batman's origin story, or do we just jump right into the action? Kung Pao, like in the old Batman TV show.
Pow! Whack!
Bang! So anyways, Tim Burton had this really, like you said, this really interesting idea of just jumping into Gotham City. He sets it up with the music by Danny Elfman, as well as the extravagant neon sets, and Gotham really feels like this clunky, dirty place, but he doesn't focus on Batman. He focuses on, at least in the first movie, the Joker and his initial storytelling. We don't see Batman for 20 or 30 minutes into the film, Bruce
Except
Wayne.
for that first scene, and then all of a sudden you don't see Batman forever.
Yeah. Get it? Batman Forever. Okay, anyways. So yeah, and it's interesting as Warner Brothers and Tim Burton were looking towards a third film after Batman Returns. Michael Keaton actually said that he wanted to explore Batman's origin story. So they didn't get to do that, and there was this whole debacle with Warner Brothers. I could talk about that for a whole nother podcast about studio whatever. So anyways, we're not going to talk about...
Probably should talk about studio issues.
Right now?
No, not right now. We'll do it later.
Later, yeah. We'll do it later in another podcast.
Okay, good.
Okay. So anyways, there's this huge debacle. So then when it came time in 2005 for Christopher Nolan to come on the scene and revive the broken franchise that resulted from Burton's initially successful venture, he decided to go for that origin story that Keaton had wanted so badly to explore, and did it amazingly well. Because of Batman Begins, we have a better understanding of the constant fear and guilt that Bruce feels from his childhood, the traumatic experiences he had, and Nolan continually focuses on origin, whether it's on Bruce himself or the villains he faces. So I've always wondered, though, which one of the Joker's stories about his scars are true? Speaking of.
That is a really good question, and it brings us to this podcast public service announcement.
PSA.
PSA. Children, pay attention. When it comes to putting food in your mouth, use the fork, not the knife.
It's just not very effective.
Not very good.
Or spork.
Or spork.
Yeah, that works
Avoid
surprisingly well.
sporks. They're just sporks. How about
Knives? Huh?
Forks?
Forks?
Because sporks are forks and forks and spoons.
Yeah. Anyways,
Forks are fine.
moral of the story is
Is it public service announcement? Avoid eating with a knife.
yes.
Use a fork.
So now, all of a sudden, we move on past Nolan to the Zack Snyder fellow and his Zack Snyderness that I don't even know how to analyze. It wasn't originally Ben Affleck was going to direct the film, and then Snyder was brought on to Joss Whedon the whole DC cinematic universe.
That kind of sounds about right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I mean, I'm okay with Zack Snyder actually directing this film. And yeah, I mean, I've got some hangups with the actual storyline and things like that, but I actually like Zack Snyder as a director. I mean, Zack Snyder directed 300,
which was a very successful film.
Very successful film. A very good retelling of a story, even though he took tons of artistic license and liberties. I'm actually okay with it. Then he came back later. He did Watchmen. He did Sucker Punch. And then he came and directed Man of Steel, which Man of Steel was actually a really good storytelling take on Superman. Like it was great.
It was very good.
I mean, the only issue I had with it was the kissing scene at the end when they're kissing on top of on top of the rubble of some building that was collapsed. That's not very romantic, and it didn't need to happen then. Take her back to your parents' farm and do it there.
I agree. There's a time and a place, people, for superheroes to kiss their super gals.
Yeah, it's not on top of a building that you accidentally collapsed.
Yep.
So I don't know. Him directing Batman versus Superman. I mean, he did a pretty good job of it. He had a lot of those story mode elements and things. I don't know. There were a couple of things in there that probably weren't up to him because let's be honest, the film got, ex-Joss Whedoned.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to me that because immediately following that film, the public outcry was like, fire him, don't let him direct another movie, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, clearly he has a track record of being able to do these types of films and other films very well. But for some reason, DC, let's talk about it. DC has a curse. It's the DC curse, as we call it here.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily Zack Snyder's fault. It's just DC. I mean, they can barely do TV shows right, but spoiler alert, no one can die in, ABC Freeform or whatever it is that does those TV series. No one is capable...
the CW?
CW?
Yep.
No one's capable of dying in them. Kill off a main character from time to time, please. Public service announcement to the CW.
Well, now that we've gotten that out of our systems, we'll talk a little bit about how these stories are told. We mentioned before that as weird and unusual as Tim Burton is in his films, he's a master filmmaker. He utilizes every type of element of filmmaking and tries as best as he can to not overdo one of them or make them too heavy, but it all pulls together for some kind of cohesiveness. And I love that about his movie. After the comical Adam West movie in 1966, Burton was the first to implement the rigid batsuit, which we'll get to later. But he was also the one that started into the darker tone of the Batman films that we know and love today. So,
speaking of the darker tones, this is where we have to stop for a second.
Okay.
We've got to talk about Christian Bale.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Christian Bale, we've already said that he was the best Batman. Some may disagree with us. Again, direct all your comments and insults to the Twitter handle on the left side of the screen. Christopher Nolan, in his own, with his own words in an interview with Yahoo Movies, was talking about how he wasn't satisfied with how he interpreted Bruce Wayne. He actually was talking about it, and he said that his interpretation of like this Bruce Wayne character is that he's a very, very, very like screwed up, dark character, very messed up character, and that when he puts on the bat suit, that's who Bruce Wayne really is, which is kind of I mean, just okay with it. It's the same persona he had for Moses. I'm not totally on board with that take, but it's just, I don't know, maybe it's a good thing he didn't quite accomplish that. I mean, he was also talking about how Heath Ledger just came in and took his character to the next level of darkness, and it seemed like he was kind of jealous over Heath Ledger's abilities there. But yeah, so even with like Christopher Nolan's take and everything on it, Christian Bale was definitely right on board saying, Batman's actually a very dark character, very screwed up character, um, from the get-go, from
Right.
the origin that we've seen over and over again with him being orphaned.
Right. And I think it's interesting though that Christopher Nolan did continue that dark theme. He continued with what makes him tick, right? And I think something even building upon what Tim Burton did, Nolan expanded the idea of kind of going back to Gotham City. He expanded that into a familiar cityscape location so that you look at Gotham and you say, is that Atlanta? Is that Toronto? Is that New York? Like, what is that? It kind of brings it more home so that it doesn't feel so abstract and so like distantly far. You feel like Batman could be a real person. Something interesting that was done for the first time when the trailers were first released for The Dark Knight Rises, a lot of people were saying that they had problems understanding Bane, as we mentioned and made fun of earlier.
What are you talking about?
I don't know, Mr. Batman.
So anyways,
It's awful.
because of the reaction that people had, they were able to go back and post and re-edit them so that it wasn't as bad. I think they even had to go back and reshoot some of his lines as he was wearing the mask. So anyways, it changed certain aspects of filmmaking that we can see today in other movies, where this initial reaction causes somebody to go back and rework something that they've already done, which is typically done because the studio wants it done, not because the public wants it done. So that was really interesting to note. And another interesting thing that Nolan did with that movie is there's a lot of chanting of in the prison that the prisoners do. That is all fan crowd noise from Comic-Con, people's submissions online. That was something that had never been done before, and that was really cool to say, hey, I had a part in that movie.
That's actually really cool.
So anyways, just kind of things to think about as far as directors go. And of course, now thanks to everybody's favorite villain, Heath Ledger's Joker, who Jack Nicholson warned him about getting deep into that character. People like Jared Leto and anybody else playing his character has to now have a full psychological staff on hand.
As the third public service announcement from the Film Files podcast, be very careful when you are playing the Joker.
Be very careful.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
All right, on to our next segment, Tomato Taste Test.
Ooh, these tomatoes taste bad. As you saw from that clever title sequence, it is time for the tomato taste test. Josh?
How many of the Batman films were financially successful? Batman 1989, successful. Tim Burton did a great job. People liked it. He surprised people with Michael Keaton's performance, and it did really well. Batman Returns, however, there's mixed reviews. Some people say it was successful. Other people say it's really unsuccessful. Critics absolutely hated that movie. They also hated, there's this whole thing with the McDonald's debacle. Let's talk about it real quick.
Okay.
So
Brought
in
to
there,
you by McDonald's.
brought to you by the Happy Meal. Okay, anyways. So the McDonald's debacle was this. In their marketing plan for Batman Returns, McDonald's had these Happy Meal toys. I even have one still at my house, like where my parents live. There's this you roll it back and it zooms forward Batmobile from the movie. And they had one with the Penguin in his car and Catwoman and her weird version of her car. So anyways, they were saying that because the movie was so abhorrently violent and all these things, that somehow McDonald's was suggesting that they have kids go out and see this movie, and they were endorsing that kids see the movie, and McDonald's responded saying, in no way are we saying that kids should go out and see this movie, and these things are totally separate from the movie, and we're not there. And Warner Brothers was like, yeah, we marketed these toys to be completely separate from the movie and not derivative. And it's like, when you say that the cups have a lid with a flying disc straight from the movie, how is that not supposed to be part of the movie? Anyways, I'm done talking about McDonald's.
Brought to you by McDonald's.
McDonald's. Okay.
Home of the Happy Meal.
Batman Forever, 1995, got a 5.1 out of 10. Basically, it just went downhill. Batman and Robin, same thing.
Coming back to Batman Forever real quick, I just want
Yeah.
to bring this up. The budget was $100 million to make this movie back in 1995.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
It wasn't that successful, but it still made its money back. It made
Twice.
its money back just in the rentals.
Alone.
Flashback to Blockbuster and Hollywood Home Video.
Hollywood Home Video.
Brought to you by Blockbuster.
Blockbuster.
Yeah, just in rentals, they made $105 million.
Which is pretty significant, actually. So anyways, it wasn't as successful as some of the other films, but it could be still technically considered a success.
Successful for the dollar value, not for the franchise.
Yeah. So now we move on to Nolan, the Nolan era. Batman Begins was a success, critically acclaimed. Dark Knight, obviously the same, but more. Heath Ledger won a posthumous Oscar for his performance. And then we have The Dark Knight Rises, which to me was kind of like a letdown.
It was a letdown.
I don't know. It didn't catch me. There were plot holes. I don't know.
And it's such a challenge because it's like, typically you have a movie that's broken into sequels or trilogies where it's like the origin movie is amazing, it's great, and then the next movies go downhill. Well, what's crazy in this situation is that The Dark Knight was incredible, that blew Batman Begins out of the water.
Right.
And then you have The Dark Knight Rises, where you spend the majority of your time actually earnestly trying to get past the plot holes, but you just can't do it.
It was it was really hard. And good job to Tom Hardy, I guess, for acting through a mask. And I was really excited to see Gordon Joseph Levitt become Robin, Batman, whatever. I thought that was really cool. But there's not a whole lot more to say. And then Batman v Superman, we've already talked that to death. And in my comments here, I just have what was that? So,
if we are going to talk about, was it a success in that, did it bring in money? So if we're going to be talking purely monetarily speaking, The Dark Knight Rises was a success. It took $250 million to make, and it grossed just in the U.S. $448 million in that first year.
Gotcha.
So they made their monies. They made their monies. They made their monies.
They made the monies.
Was it good for the franchise? Who cares, because it was the last movie in the trilogy.
Yeah.
Are we inviting Christian Bale to come back for Batman vs. Superman? Well, the clear answer to that was no.
No, you didn't want to.
Well, thanks for joining us here at Film Files. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Next week, we will be talking about Sherlock, the TV series from our friends across the sea.
Across the pond, as they say.
Yes, they do. We call it a sea.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll be talking about, is Sherlock the pinnacle of cinematic storytelling?
Or is it the most wrecked TV series of all time?
I wonder. Here are arguments next time on Films Files podcast.
See you later.